Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you a great method of recycling old and unwanted lids into a great sheet material which can be used on almost any DIY project. As you can see here, I've used the recycled material to make two different slingshots, and this first one here is made almost completely out of recycled milk carton lids, and then this second one here only has two different parts laminated on, but I still think that they both look really nice. The first slingshot is just the Rambone slingshot designed by York's Brav, but the second one is my smaller, more compact adaptation of that slingshot. If you want to see any of the tutorials on how to make any of these other slingshots here, just click on the link in the description down below to my Rambone slingshot playlist. In my last slingshot project, I melted down milk cartons into a slingshot mould, which I then pressed all of the milk cartons into and then clamped it up, but this time I'm just going to be melting the material down into a sheet material, which can be shaped into the slingshot. This method of making HDPE has had a lot of trial and error put into it, and I've tried to find the best method to make it, but if you do have any suggestions on how I could improve this method and make it more efficient, please just post a comment down below. So now let's get started and see how you make the HDPE. So first let me show you how I made this swirly red sheet material where I mixed red and white in different colours and then pressed it together. So the first thing that you're going to need is an old baking tray, and I've got an old one here that I'm not using anymore because if you get some HDPE spilled onto it then you can't use it in the oven at any high temperatures. As you can also see, I've put some non-stick cooking paper down over the baking tray which I'm going to be melting the HDPE onto. I put a little bit of cooking flour onto a spoon and then I'm lightly tapping some of the powder down onto the paper. This is going to help to stop the sticky HDPE from sticking to the paper. Next, you need to find the right types of lids or plastic which you're going to be melting down. You need to make sure that you're using the right type of plastic because otherwise when you heat it up it can create some really toxic fumes that are then going to go in your oven, and then you don't want to cook food in there. The plastic is high density polyethylene, and that's symbolized with a little 2 within a recycling triangle, and then below that it should either say PEHD or HDPE. You can find it in almost every single lid for bottles that's made of plastic and also in milk cartons. Milk cartons are a really good source of white HDPE. It's important that when you're mixing colours that you use the more white version on the white, since the grey version mixes the colours together too much and doesn't look very nice. Now you need to collect up all of the different bottle lids of whatever colour you want to melt down into your sheet material, and I just collected a lot of lids over time just from getting them from wherever I could see them, but you could probably get them from a recycling centre. Since I'm making a red and white material, I'm going to place down a bottom layer of just some red lids first. You then need to set your oven on just normal oven heating at 175 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's important that you keep it about this temperature because this is the temperature where HDPE melts, but it doesn't create any fumes or gases. Above this temperature, the HDPE will become incredibly sticky and difficult to work with, and it also might create gases and burn. Now put the baking tray and the lids into the oven. I like to leave everything to warm up for about 15 or 20 minutes, and while that's all warming up, I'm going to start to cut up some of my milk cartons. Since they're not being placed into a mould, I don't need to cut them up very small, I just cut them up into big strips which I can place down onto the HDPE. This is what the lids look like once they've melted, and for some reason they seem to sometimes shrink a little bit in the heat, so I'm going to place a couple more down until it makes a layer. As you can see, I'm also wearing gloves, and they don't have to be pink, but it's very important that you wear some gloves because this HDPE is at 175 degrees, which is well above the boiling point of water, and it's very sticky, so if it sticks to your skin it can leave nasty burns. A couple of minutes later and the new lids have melted, I can press down all of the sheet material with a lid and just get all the air bubbles out. I can then scrape all the pieces closer together with a chef's knife so that they're more compact, and then I can place on some of the new white HDPE from the milk cartons. Once I've got a good layer of them, I can put on some more red lids. I put that back in the oven, and once it's melted it looks something like this. I'm going to keep on compacting everything closer together into a more square-like shape and then adding more material, doing different layers of different colours. I'm going to keep on going until I have a decent amount of material which I'm pleased with. It's very important that as you go you press down really hard with the metal lid or something like that to get all of the air bubbles out of the different layers. You don't have to just use 2 colours of HDPE, you can mix every single different colour randomly, and I think that still looks quite nice. Once you've built up a decent amount of material which you're quite happy with, you can scrape the whole thing off the bottom of the paper and pick it up in your hands. You then need to keep on folding it over and adding more material where you feel fit, and then once you've folded it over, you need to press it flat really again and get all of the air bubbles out, and then just keep on folding it over. This is going to create that layered effect and the wavy lines, which look really nice. In the end, I've probably folded it over about 20 times. If your HDPE is sticking to your gloves, then it's too hot and you need to turn your oven down a little bit. When the HDPE is easily moldable, almost like chewing gum, that's when it's at the right temperature. When it's becoming hard to fold and press down, then you need to put it back on the tray and put it back in the oven until it heats up again. Once you're happy with the amount of times that you've folded it, you need to set something up like this. I've just got a vise and I've got two rather large pieces of wood on either side of the vise jaws, and I'm just going to clamp up the HDPE here, but you could also just use G-clamps. You then need to put the HDPE in the oven for slightly longer at a slightly higher temperature, maybe 176 or 177 degrees, so that all of the layers weld together properly, and then you need to bring it through to your vise or whatever clamps you have set up, and then clamp it between the two pieces of wood. Squeeze it really tight so that it gets all the air bubbles out, and then you can squeeze it to the thickness that you like and also to the size that you like. You can also press it into a mold like I did in my last Slingshot tutorial on HDPE, and that was hard because the HDPE managed to stick to the mold. After 5 minutes of cooling, come back and then tighten up the vise a little bit more so that there's a lot of pressure against the HDPE. This is because HDPE has a lot of thermal expansion and contraction, and that's just the properties of the material, and if there's not pressure then it will warp and bend. After about 20 minutes of cooling, the HDPE should be cool enough to take out of the vise. This is what my piece looks like. I'm going to saw off an edge just so that you can see all of the cool patterns below. This is what it looks like once I've sanded it down a little bit and put a little bit of a curve in it, and I think that the patterns look really nice. Using this method you can be really efficient and have a couple of things in the oven at once. Here I managed to use some of the HDPE's properties of when it's sticky to my advantage, and I managed to make some of it bond to some cloth which I was using. The way that I did this was I melted down each layer and then put a piece of cloth in between, and I'd hammer some holes between the cloth so the HDPE could bond through the holes, and then also it would bond into the cloth because it's very sticky. I think that this turned out quite nicely. Now I'm going to briefly show you how I made a slingshot mostly out of HDPE. First I cut out the basic shape of a Rambone slingshot out of some black plastic. I then glued on some of the cloth material with epoxy resin. Even though epoxy resin doesn't work as a permanent bond on HDPE, it works slightly temporarily so that you can get the basic shape, and then once you've done that you have to hammer in nails as pins. I'm still trying to find a better alternative to bond HDPE to other materials, but most plastics glues won't work. I then glue on some more sheet material and start to shape it. You can shape HDPE with normal woodworking tools, but it's important that you wear a dust mask while shaping it because it creates fine dust which you don't want to get in your lungs. Once I've got the basic handle shape, then I can start to move on to the fork area, and I'm just adding pins as I go to stabilize all of the material. I then move on to sanding the slingshot all the way up to 1000 grit and then buff it on a buffing wheel. When that's done, I've got a new slingshot that I can add to my collection of Rambone slingshots. This tutorial really doesn't go into much detail on how to make HDPE slingshots since I've already got a full tutorial on my channel. So to conclude, HDPE is a really strong and versatile material, and it's even pretty lightweight, and it's completely waterproof. The thing that I like most about these type of projects is that you're recycling them from things that you'd normally throw away, and then once you're done you create something which you value much more than the original thing. Now I can band up the slingshots and they fire really well. Out of the first slingshot here I'm just going to be firing some 20mm marbles, and out of the smaller slingshot I'm just going to be firing some 15mm steel ball bearings. Both slingshots seem to be performing very well, and I'm very pleased with the outcome of today's results. So thanks for watching guys, I really hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please hit the like button down below and subscribe. If you want to know more about how to make HDPE slingshots, mainly on the slingshot part and not on the moulding part, then click on the link in the description to my other HDPE tutorial.